Ponzi is probably one of the most popular words in crypto. It's what the outside world says about us, and we even joke about it ourselves. Most people know that the name comes from an old scammer from way back in the day, but how much do you actually know about the story behind the first Ponzi? Let's get it.
I'm not a financial advisor.
Welcome to BitBoy X. I'm your host. If you like digging deep in the history of finance with me, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more. We get the BitBoy Bootcamp coming up. In this video, I'm gonna dig into the man, the myth, and the legend of Charles Ponzi, the namesake of the most popular scam in modern history. He didn't invent the scheme though, he just popularized it. This type of scam has been going on for centuries, and it's probably where we got the classic saying, robbing Peter to pay Paul. For generations, there have been scammers who have borrowed money or collected investments that they were never going to return. And many times they were collecting that money just to pay off the old debts. The debt chases them around for their entire lives, just through different people, until it finally catches up with them. This is probably as old as money itself, but Charles Ponzi was the first big scammer of the modern age that was able to collect millions of dollars from people all over the country. This all went down in 1920. So this was the beginning of the age of mass media, making it one of the first big court cases that was able to captivate the whole country. Ponzi was just one of many schemers and dreamers in the early 20th century that were looking to finance for ways to make it big. He actually had a pretty good idea to take advantage of an arbitrage opportunity on a very early version of a cross-border payment system. In 1919, the US Post Office started issuing notes called postage coupons, or international reply coupons, which allowed a sender to pay for the recipient's return letter. Kind of like the opposite of making a collect call, for those of you who are old enough to remember, or of course, those of you who spent any time in prison. Currency prices between countries were extremely volatile back then because it was immediately following the First World War and the individual currencies themselves were unstable. Now, in Ponzi's autobiography, he said he came up with the idea for his scheme after he got a letter from a friend in Spain who purchased one of those reply coupons for 30 centavos, which was worth much less than the 5 cents they were running back home. It really seemed like he discovered a gold mine. His plan was to purchase these coupons for low prices in foreign countries and then redeem them for a higher value here in the US. This really isn't all that much different from what was happening with Bitcoin a few years ago, if you think about it, where traders were buying here in the US and selling in South Korea, where it was trading at a strong premium. It sounded like a brilliant idea, arbitrage. So Ponzi started collecting money right away, and he quickly collected millions, which was not very common back in those days. It was a lot of money. Get this, he called his company the Securities Exchange Company, the SEC. And this was years before the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, was created. There was a problem though. Once he tried to actually carry out his plan and cash in the coupons, he realized that it just wasn't possible at scale. You cash out a few coupons here and there, but logistics of getting them around the world and the liquidity that was required for the amount of money he was collecting, it wasn't possible. Remember, he couldn't just send it across the internet like we can today. And he would have to handle all of those physical coupons too. It just wasn't possible. His Ponzi's dream of easy money from arbitrage failed to materialize. He faced a decision. Instead of admitting failure, he chose to continue raising funds by offering unusually high returns to new investors, paying them with the money from previous investors. Remember the money that was running out? These are the basic mechanics of a Ponzi scheme. Paying old investors back with money from new investors instead of through legitimate profits. He was able to get away with the scheme for a while, but the returns were so unrealistic that people started to get suspicious. And then journalists started investigating him. The Boston Post published an investigation where they calculated that Ponzi could not possibly be generating enough profits from postal coupons to pay off the massive returns he promised. Their analysis showed that Ponzi would have needed to purchase around 160 million coupons to match the volume of investments he was handling. But only a few thousand coupons were in circulation. Then the regulators started investigating him. And then the public entirely lost confidence, started taking out their money. causing a run on Ponzi's office. This led to the collapse of his business and eventually his arrest. He spent over a decade in prison and was eventually deported to Italy in 1934. Even after everything collapsed, Ponzi still had a ton of fans and supporters, and the dominant narrative was that the victims had only themselves to blame because they were being greedy and chasing gains. The funny thing about this is that most of his biggest supporters who were spreading this narrative were so defensive of him because they made a lot of money early on. Many of them also blamed the press or the government instead of Ponzi himself because they were the ones that triggered the collapse by uncovering the scam. It would take many years for his folk hero status to fade, but the cult of personality that surrounded him and the special time that he existed in history probably has a lot to do with why we're still saying his name today. If you're subscribed to the channel, you're raising your historical, political, and financial IQ. You can join our free Discord and stay even more in the loop with the Bit Squad. Link in the description. That's all I got. Be blessed. Bye-bye out.